To ask you, are you aware of the names of any Liberal parliamentarians, former parliamentarians or candidates that are at risk of being compromised by FI?
Yes, and for other parties as well, because I have access to large amounts of information.
Right.
On voit, et comme je viens de mentionner, on vient de voir récemment que RT est en train de financer des blogueurs et personnalités YouTube de droite en Amérique du Nord, y compris avec des noms très, très connus comme Jordan Peterson ou Tucker Carlson, pour amplifier des messages qui déstabilisent les démocraties.
Hello everyone, Alexa Labois for Rebel News, and today Justin Trudeau is set to testify at the Foreign Interference Commission here in Ottawa. I've traveled all the way from Montreal to attend. But if you are looking for a deep dive into the full scope of the commissions, I highly recommend following my colleague Sheila Gunn-Reid, who is providing independent comprehensive coverage at exposethetraders.com. On September 7th, 2023, the Government of Canada established the public inquiry into foreign interference in federal electoral processes and democratic institutions. During the whole process, numerous high-profile witnesses testified before Marie-Josée Hogg, a judge of the Quebec Court of Appeal, who was appointed commissioner. On October 11th, former Public Safety Minister Bill Blair and his Chief of Staff, Zita Astravas, were scheduled to testify. It was revealed that in 2021, a crucial warrant issued by CSIS concerning Liberal so-called power broker Michael Chang took 54 days to reach Bill Blair for his signature after being sent to Astravas. This significant delay raised suspicions among critics that Astravas may have been attempting to cover up dirt within her own party. For context, Michael Chang is a former Liberal MPP who now serves as Deputy Mayor of Markham. Watch this.
Any of this information was being sent in my direction. But with absolute certainty, it never got to me. But I had no knowledge of that.
It's absurd, given that such a warrant should have been treated with utmost seriousness.
I'll conclude with this last question then. When your staff were reviewing the documents, or the affidavit documents, if it came to their attention they had a personal relationship with either the target or someone identified on the Van Wienen list, was it appropriate for them to continue giving you advice?
My expectation is if any of my staff, and this has been well communicated, we have standards of conduct, and my expectation is everyone would understand the rules with respect to declaring a conflict of interest. That did not take place in any of these matters.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Yet it was endowed with a seemingly negligent attitude.
Yes.
So Deputy Minister Stewart testified yesterday to 2 points. He said, first, that the Chief of Staff would flag an application, a warrant application for the Minister to sign. And second, he testified that the Minister would not know that a warrant was there for him to sign unless the Chief of Staff told him. So it wasn't the Deputy Minister's job or the CSIS Director's job, it was your job. You're the last stop for the train before it reaches the station. That's the term you use, isn't it?
I would say that, there are a number of times that the director and the deputy minister had...
Ms. Astravas, I'm sorry, that's not my question. Why did you not tell him? It was your job. Why did you not tell him?
As I have testified, that between day 13 and 54, there would have been a awareness of a warrant requiring his attention. I would also add that Minister was in contact with the Deputy Minister and Director Vigneault on a regular basis, and nothing prevented them to express a desire of priority. They have both testified that they were not concerned about the timeline, nor did they raise it as a matter of priority. As soon as the director put it on an agenda, time was scheduled with the minister and it was signed.
Thank you, Ms. Astravas. Thank you, Commissioner.
Counsel for the Conservative.
The final witness to appear before the commission was PM Trudeau himself, who gave an insight to his liberal worldview. At the start of the testimony, Justin Trudeau swore an oath while raising his hand to tell the truth and not lie. Throughout the morning, he underwent several examinations and interviews to discuss documents provided by multiple government sources. I want to show you the exchange between lawyer Gib Van Hert, representing MP Marker Chong, who himself claims was allegedly targeted by threat from China. Pay attention to how Trudeau, who claimed to have first heard about the issue through the media, attempted to downplay the level of threats posed by the totalitarian, oppressive government of China.
You confirmed this morning that your government's assessment of the PRC's targeting of Michael Chong and his relations in Hong Kong is not foreign interference, but is instead lawful diplomatic activity. Sir, there were in 2021 4 intelligence products. We've only seen one of them, but there were 4 concerning PRC activities directed at my client, all coming from CSIS. The one that we've been able to see in some unredacted form is the famous IMU from the 31st of May, which I expect you've seen before. It says explicitly that CSIS regards there as being multiple threat actors, including the Ministry of State Security. Are you aware of that, sir? I can show you the document if it helps, but you may be familiar with it already.
I am
Commissioner, sorry, just before the Prime Minister answered, my friend said you confirmed this morning that the PRC's targeting of Chong was not foreign interference. My recollection is the Prime Minister testified that Zhao Wei's targeting of Chong was not foreign interference. So I believe that was the evidence the Prime Minister gave, but I stand to be corrected by my friend.
Yes. I was talking about Zhao Wei.
Yeah, it's much of a muchness to me, sir. So my point is this. The Ministry of State Security, you're familiar with that agency?
Yes.
Is there any such agency in this country?
I think drawing parallels between Canadian structures and the PRC structures is extremely difficult at best.
Yes, particularly in the case of the MSS, because it's a foreign intelligence agency and we don't have one of those, right?
We have an intelligence agency that focuses on collection internationally, which is CSIS.
Right, right. But we don't send spies abroad and we don't send secret police abroad. Isn't that right, sir?
I'm not going to speak to CSIS operations, but I can tell you there are CSIS employees all around the world.
Sir, my point is this. The MSS is PRC's...
Or I'm missing something about
well, let
what
me get
CSIS
to it.
does.
MSS is PRC's equivalent of Russia's FSB or the Soviet Union's old KGB, or indeed India's RAW, the research and analysis.
Or the U.S.'s CIA.
Right, we don't have anything like that. My point, sir, is that if a diplomat, a so-called diplomat, Wei Zhou, in this country is sending information about a Canadian MP, 2 Canadian MPs as it turns out, back to MSS, not back to the foreign departments, not back to foreign affairs, but to China's spy agency, that, sir, is not lawful diplomacy. Don't you agree with that?
Oh, yeah, I'll say 2 things about that. First of all, I'm not entirely certain that you understand what CSIS is, if not Canadians' agency for collecting intel overseas. And secondly, in terms of the analysis of what Zhao Wei or others were doing, I am obviously not an expert in the hierarchies within the People's Republic of China's various agencies, but what I can say is I defer to CSIS's conclusions on these because they are the intelligence agency that provides me information, provides us information on foreign activities, particularly bad actors. CSIS's conclusion in this case that we've seen before this commission is that the actions that Zhao Wei engaged in regards to your client did not constitute foreign interference. Now,
then lawyer Guillaume Sirois, representing the Russian-Canadian Democratic Alliance, brought up the 2022 Freedom Convoy. Remember? When peaceful, freedom-loving Canadians from across the land united to protest against the tyrannical and unscientific COVID restrictions and vaccine mandates imposed by all levels of government and heavily promoted by the Trudeau regime, the PM who invoked martial law to have police beat the protester off Parliament, which was then later ruled unjust by a federal judge. It claims the alleged influence of Russia in exacerbating the so-called chaos in Canada and then referring Russia to the news as evidence. Notably, for nearly the entire day, Trudeau spoke in English until this point, where he suddenly switched to French when making absurdly false claims about the convoy and then accused that notable Canadian psychologist, Dr. Jordan Peterson and American journalist Tucker Carlson were being paid by Russian outlet RT to destabilize Canadian democracy. It's likely he chose to speak in French knowing his message would resonate more with French-Canadian population where he remained stronger in the polls than the Conservative Party.
Oui, on a vu que des messages de anti-vax pendant le convoi et pendant la pandémie qui ont été amplifiés par la propagande russe, particulièrement dans les médias de droite, a continué par des messages dans les mêmes sous les mêmes gens qui partageaient des messages anti-vax, maintenant, pas pour dire qu'il n'y avait pas des gens légitimement et authentiquement anti-vax au Canada, mais ça a été amplifié énormément par la propagande russe. Et une fois que l'Ukraine a été envahie, on a vu beaucoup de ces canaux se transformer en propagande pro-Poutine. On voit, et comme je viens de mentionner, on vient de voir récemment que RT est en train de financer des blogueurs et personnalités YouTube de droite en Amérique du Nord, y compris avec des noms très, très connus comme Jordan Peterson ou Tucker Carlson, pour amplifier des messages qui déstabilisent les démocraties.
Although Trudeau was outside Parliament, he might still be protected by parliamentary privilege, allowing him to avoid being sued for his words. Jordan Peterson responded online to these accusations along with his wife, Tammy Peterson, while Tucker Carlson has yet to react. Now, watch as lawyer Nando De Luca, representing the Conservative Party, challenges Trudeau on his inflammatory testimony regarding alleged foreign interference involving only CPC parliamentarians.
And in your salacious testimony earlier today, you mentioned that you're aware of the names of past and present Conservative parliamentarians, former parliamentarians, candidates that are in risk of being compromised by foreign interference. I'd like to ask you, are you aware of the names of any Liberal parliamentarians, former parliamentarians or candidates that are at risk of being compromised by FI?
Yes, and for other parties as well, because I have access to large amounts of information.
Right. You didn't mention those today, right?
We spent an entire session the last time we had a public hearing talking about concerns and named individuals that CSIS and intelligence agencies had within the Liberal Party. Don Valley North comes to mind as a riding. So as I have said many times, there have been actions taken and choices made based on information we got because I had that security clearance. Right. Mr. Poilievre has decided not to get that security clearance, so he can't even know how to begin or not to make decisions regarding that information.
Pierre Poilievre, leader of the Conservative Party, has so far refused to go through the security clearance process offered by the federal government, which would grant him access to the intelligence. This is what Trudeau is referring in his testimony. The catch is that after doing so, Poilievre would be bound for a lifetime confidentiality agreement, preventing him from ever discussing or challenging the Liberal Party on this issue, a restriction he clearly doesn't want to accept. As a response, the Conservative leader has called on the Prime Minister to simply release the names to the public so Canadians are aware. For more in-depth coverage, visit exposethetraders.com, where my colleague Sheila Gunn-Reid continues her excellent work on the commission. On the same website, you can sign the petition if you agree that the names of those alleged to be working against Canadian democracy needs to be released to the public. Don't forget to contribute to support our mission of exposing the truth.